Welcome back, guys. It is craft time. Let's go ahead and get started. Believe it or not, spring is almost here, or at least that's what that silly little groundhog says. So we are going to be doing some bee-inspired projects today. These are going to be a mixture of some like Dollar Tree items and thrift flipping. And so let's jump in with the first one. I had thrifted this little brown, I don't even know what it is, like little tray maybe, I don't know. I immediately saw a honeycomb and I knew I wanted to do some type of bee inspired thing with it. I just needed a bee and I didn't feel like trying to make my own, so I ran into Hobby Lobby because it's right next door to my exercise class that I do, and they had 40% off all of their spring stuff. So I went in, grabbed this little bee charm with the little beaded string, a couple of things of ribbon, and a larger wooden bee that we're going to be using in another project here, so that I can use that to turn this into a really cute honeycomb. So we're going to start out with the wood. We're just going to be painting it up. So I'm going to be using some acrylic paint on this, kind of like a golden yellow. It is called Golden Sunset, made by Wheelbarrow, and I'm just going to paint the entire thing. I'm going to be using a hard bristle brush to get into the crevices and like the circle part of this, more like a stencil brush or like a chip brush material. That way I can get down in there and really cover that fully. And again, just coat this whole thing. Once it dries, I'm going to go back in with a second coat to make sure everything is filled in and looking good. And once that dries, we're just going to do a light sanding over top of it. I just want to distress it back just a little bit to give it a little dimension. And then we're going to go in and make honey. I'm so excited for this part. All we're going to do is take some hot glue, let it heat up in our gun, and then we're going to fill those little holes with the hot glue. Now, my hot glue gun was hot enough at first, but as the new stick got to the front, it wasn't melted enough, and I honestly didn't feel like waiting on every new part of the glue stick to get hot enough. So what I want to do is just take my heat gun. So I'm going to fill in just a light layer of hot glue, kind of like circle it around, get it kind of covered as much as I can, and then use my heat gun to heat that glue up a little bit more so that it melts into a puddle and fills that entire circle. And I'm just going to do this over and over until I've filled them all up. I don't want to fill them fully. I just want to make it look like, you know, the honey is sitting into the comb. And then after that dries completely, we are going to work on making the honey drip out of the comb. So I'm kind of played with the placement to know how I want this to stand and where my bee's gonna go, so that I know I'm gonna leave a flat spot in that area so that I can adhere it properly. But I'm gonna do my best to get a good camera angle on this for you so you can see, because I have to do it standing up, as in the piece standing up. So I pulled out a piece of parchment paper. That way the glue, I want it in the bottom. I'm going to start at the bottom and go towards the top. That way any drips from the top that come down will look like they have fallen naturally over top of the ones that are on the bottom. And then at the bottom, I want it to spill out and kind of flatten out to where it just gives it a little extra sturdiness when it's standing. And doing that on the parchment paper will allow it to not stick, but also get that flatness that we're looking for so that it looks like it has fully spilled. So I'm going to just take it one by one, start halfway up in that circle and kind of melt glue side to side from left to right, doing enough to where it will fall and fold over the front. And I'm just going to do that over and over with each one of the little combs. And then I'm going to go back after it's like kind of dry enough to where the next thing of glue is not going to just melt into it, and just add a couple extra drips. Like if I feel like I want one to be longer or a little shorter, or just like have a little bit more dimension to it, I'm just going to kind of pick and choose how I want that to go, and then I'm going to let it dry thoroughly. After that, I'm going to get all these little strings out of the way. My glue wasn't hot enough for those, you know, to get a clean break off the nozzle, but I was just trying to get this project moving, so I'm just going to come back in with some scissors and cut those away, and it's not a problem at all. Or pull them. I use tweezers. I keep tweezers in my craft drawer because it's easy to get those like little strings that you can't quite get your fingernail under. So While that's drying, we're gonna focus on the bee. So the bee is this cute, like I said, little charm, but we are going to cut it away from the beaded string that it's on, but don't worry, we'll be reusing that for another project in this video. So we're going to just take some tweezers and some pliers and pull and cut, and with some scissors, the little piece of rope that's still connected to its head because it's glued down into like a pre-cut circle. And get some little piece of sandpaper and sand that out to try to flatten it down as much as possible. And then we're gonna paint this. I mean, it is already painted to be a bee, but I want to kind of put my spin on this and elaborate the colors and also paint around the edges so that when you see this from the side, it is more of a 3D look instead of just that 2D bee on the face of it. So I'm just going to use some of that yellow, some black Waverly chalk paint and some white, and I'm just going to start painting all of the pieces that are already those colors on here, and then I'm going to come back and add some dimension. So on the wings, I'm going to start taking a small brush and rubbing it on the outline or on the edges of it to kind of outline it, and then I'm going to kind of go back in with some fresh white paint and go over top of those to where it kind of starts to like streak a little bit. I don't want it to be a solid black or white. I just want it to kind of have like those gray tones to make it look, I don't know, give it some dimension, because you know the wings are more translucent. I'm just trying to give an appearance that there is more there than just a solid white wing. And then I'm going to take that brush and kind of trace the outline of this bee all over it, and then, like I said, wash in some of those colors just all over to just make it a little bit more dimensional so it's not just flat, because I want this piece to really be more 3D than, like I said, just like a 2D. You can only look at it from the front. You can place it as much as you want. I'm picturing it on a tiered tray, so I wanted it to be, you know, visually pleasing from all angles. Words are really hard today, guys. So yes, after we have that bee painted up, we're going to set it to the side, and we are going to go in with some metallic like bronze and very lightly start dusting over top of those honey drips. Now they're very translucent and shiny, which is very honey-ish, but I did have two different types of glue sticks, one with more of a slightly whitish tone and then one that was more see-through. I want to make those more cohesive, but also give a shimmer and shine to this, like a nice beautiful honey, you know, soaking up the sun. So we're just going to hit all of that really lightly, get it all covered up, and then I do need to seal the bee now that it's dried with some polyacrylic because I'm using chalk paint on it, and I want to make sure that chalk paint stays in place. From there, all that's left is to conjoin the two pieces, and we're going to do that using my STARBOND glue. You take the glue that's in the bottle, put it on the area that you want. In this case, I'm going to do that on the honeycomb because of the combs, it's just better placement. And then I'm going to use the accelerating spray, spray the back of the bee, and then touch them, and they will make an immediate and permanent bond. I love this piece. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Again, I don't know what this started out as. I just immediately knew what I wanted to do with it, and it honestly is better than I pictured. So I love this project. I would love to know what you guys have to say about it as well. For our next project, we are going to be doing some little plant tags. I don't know, what do you call these? You know, with the little wooden with the string and the beads. I know there's names, but I can't, my brain's not doing braining today. So we're gonna take those. I have a wooden heart left from some projects, Valentine's Day projects that came from the Dollar Tree, and then I also have a circle, just like wooden coaster that I had bought a pack of on Amazon a couple of years ago, and I'm gonna use those two as the tags, and then we're gonna reuse those beaded, the beaded string from the bee that we just finished up in the last project. So we're going to be using some of Dollar Tree's new transfers. I had not seen these before. I don't know if they've been out for a while and I'm just now seeing them. I haven't really done any Dollar Tree shopping lately. So these are new to me. And if you aren't new to my channel, you've seen multiple projects where I have tried out the Dollar Tree transfers because they usually work really well, other than the gold ones. Did not have luck with that, but I wanted to try these out. They're on a different paper. They're like a parchment paper, and I just wanted to kind of see how this was going to work. So I'm showing you here the different kinds that I got. The one sheet I'm not using in this video at all, but I'm specifically talking about these parchment paper ones. They're actually big, they're folded in half, so whenever you take them out of the package and open them up, you get twice as much design as you thought you were going to get, because I didn't realize that. And they're super cute. I'm showing you both, but I'm only going to be using the one with the bees all over it, and we're going to test it out. So let's go ahead and prep these little wooden pieces that we're going to use. To start, I need to drill a hole in the circle one because it does not already have a hole to tie the string through. So I'm just going to use my drill. I'm just going to find the bit that fits into the heart circle so I can make them, you know, the same size. And I'm going to go ahead and drill a small hole, clean that up, and then move on. I want to keep these pretty neutral, but also distress them down. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of white paint and mix it in with some water. It doesn't matter what kind of white paint you use. We're kind of just making a stain. I'm going to water it down a lot to where it's just barely there. And I'm going to paint the face of both of these. And as I'm going, you can slightly see the difference in them. Like I said, I just want to take away that full raw wood look, but keep it natural at the same time. So I'm just going to stain this with that very, very light white. And then once that's dry, I'm going to go in with some really watered down Waverly antiquing wax as well. And same thing, I'm going to just kind of wipe the edges with it, kind of bounce around the edges. And then I'm going to come back in with a kind of, it's like a slightly wet wipe. It's not fully dried out. It has some dampness to it, but it's not really wet. So what you can do is either lightly wet a paper towel, or if you have a brand new wipe, squeeze it in a paper towel to take out the excess water. And I'm just going to use that and rub that around the edges and towards the middle, not fully into the middle, but kind of like an inch off of the edge in every direction, to where it kind of gets lighter towards the center. And once I have the look that I like of that, which you can add more wax as you go. The reason I watered it down, you can add more, but you can't really take it away as easily. So I'm just gonna keep doing that until I got the look that I want. And then I'm gonna do the exact same thing with some of the black paint. I'm just gonna paint it on the very edge, and I'm gonna take that same thing and rub it out, really lighten it up and distress it, but I'm gonna make it go even less towards the middle, just so it looks like it's darker and getting lighter as you reach the center. And I'm really, really happy with how the distressing of this turned out. From there, we are going to start in with the transfers. So with these transfers, you want to put the image towards what you're adhering it to and the back of the paper towards yourself, and you're gonna be rubbing that on. Now I'm using a little wood stick that came with other transfer sets that I have. If you don't have that, you can use a credit card or anything with a plastic or wooden, like really flat surface, and you're just going to rub. Now, because I was going for a semi-rusted look, these ended up turning out great. But at first I was nervous because it was really hard to get off. Like, it's hard to get the parchment to kind of stay in place. With their other transfers, it kind of like helps stick itself, or it's like, I don't know, it doesn't slide around as easily. And as you start to rub, that paper kind of starts to stretch a little. So you have to be very careful. I kind of got the hang of it after a little while, and I feel like it became easier, but there are some parts that the transfer wouldn't come off at all, and there are some parts where like I had to rub extremely hard, or after I kind of worked that paper a little bit, it came off a little easier. So you're gonna have to figure this out on the way that you're rubbing, or it could be holding the tool, and like you're gonna have to find out what works best for you. Now I will say, if you're going for a rustic vibe, love how these ended up coming together, but if you're wanting that solid picture, I don't know that these transfers are going to work, but they're only $1.25, so I say try it out, see what you like, see what works for you, and then you can make that decision. So again, I'm just rubbing those transfers on. I'm trying to keep that parchment paper in place, and as you see, I'm picking it up and kind of looking under it. Not something I would typically recommend for you to do with a transfer, but I'm trying to figure this out. Again, it's not coming off, it's sliding around, it's moving on me. But I am able to kind of see and place it back down in the general space that I need to. And after a while, I started to get it to come off. So I don't know if it was user error at first or what, but I did get some really good image transfers as I went. But again, not solid on any of it. So I did the round one with one of the floral ones, and it has like a little bee at the side, and then they have like little extra bees at the bottom of the paper, and I'm going to add an extra just to kind of liven it up a little bit. And then we're going to go in and work on the heart. And I'm going to be using the little honeycomb parts of it on the heart and just kind of rubbing where I want the honeycomb to come off. If you don't want like that solid line, because they come in like little rectangles, then you can just not like scratch off that full like corners and things. I just kind of place that on there. I'm going to be using the little bee with the like wreath vine around it. I'm going to put that in the top corner and another little bee on the side, and then I kind of just was testing out how easily these transfers can stack on each other. So then I did a big flower and it worked out really well. I think it's really neat how it turned out. You can stack them without anything like messing up or sticking weird or anything. Like I said, it's just kind of getting the feel of transferring and rubbing those transfers on. Some of them came off super easy for me and I didn't have a problem, but others I really had to work on it and like replace them. Yeah, I don't know. Reline them up, I guess, and make sure that they were close enough to be able to get that off of there. So again, you test it out. Like I said, for $1.25, I love how this turned out for a rustic vibe, especially like, you know, for these, I see them either on a tiered tray or sitting in a planter or something like that. And I think they are super cute. So we're going to seal these. I want to make sure these transfers aren't going to come off. I'm going to take some polyacrylic on the front and the back of this just in case somebody does decide to put it in like their little plant stand. If it gets a little water on it, at least the polyacrylic will be water resistant. So front and back of that, and as that dries, we're going to get the strings ready. So I'm going to take those beads off of that long runner that came from the bee that we used in the first project. I'm going to be using half the beads for one and half for the other. So I just took another string, taped the end, and I was trying to just move them fluidly from one string to the other. And then I just was thinking, oh, I'm not going to use that and then this, and I should have just picked them apart and strung them. It would have taken me less time, but neither here nor there. If you're trying to string something and you're having an issue with your twine or anything unrolling, just roll a piece of tape around the end and you can use it and thread it like a needle. I'm just going to thread both of these for my second piece where I just cut the twine. I picked this up at, or like this jute, picked that up at the Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to tie the loop to match the other one, and then we need to kind of rustic and dirty up these beads a little. So what I'm going to do is take that same watered down black that I used for you know, the distressing the outside, and I'm just going to wipe that on the beads while they're laying on a paper towel, and then I'm going to use that paper towel to roll them around side to side so it will kind of smear that and kind of just go naturally where it wants to go. And then if there's any bare spots, I'll go back, touch them with paint, and repeat that process until I was happy. You could use whatever color you want for this, but I wanted the black to kind of match, you know, the darkness of those transfers. So once that was ready, all that's left is to tie the strings to the actual little tag portion. And I'm genuinely really happy with these. I prefer the round one better. I think the heart is a little too busy, but again, I wanted to practice like layering, see how it works so I can give you guys an honest like thought process. But again, would love to know what you guys think. Would also like to take the time to say, if you are here and enjoying my video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. 98% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel, which blows my mind. I'm so grateful that you're here regardless, but consider joining us. It would really help my channel out a ton and get the algorithm to just heart me a little bit and push my videos out. I put a lot of time and effort into them, so I hope that it is doing what it needs to do for you guys by inspiring. I hope the projects are up to par and that you're enjoying them. Give me some feedback in the comments. Let me know what you think, good or bad. I need it all so that I know how to grow and be better for you. All right, let's move into the third project. I have this little wheelbarrow that I thrifted last fall. I love it. I think it's adorable, but it needs a little updating. So what we're gonna do is start in with some sandpaper or my sanding block, and we're going to hit and knock down the edges on this. It's a little rough, so I wanna make sure that it's nice and smooth or smoother because I'm going to be doing a Mod Podge or transfer of a napkin onto the sides. So we're going to just hit the sander on all of it, wipe it down, clean it up, and then we're going to prep it for paint. I was trying not to get paint all over this wheel, so I was taping it up to help prevent the paint from getting on it. And then I realized, oh, there's a screw in there. We can just unscrew it and take it off. So I did that and then realized they put the wheel in before they glued the bottom onto the wheelbarrow, so I couldn't get it out after all of that work. So we're going to move on with some white chalk paint, and we are going to paint this entire wheelbarrow. We're going to do the inside, outside, and bottom. I like to make sure the backs and bottoms of all of my pieces are fully completed as well, because I do sell my products. I do not usually keep them for myself at home. So you don't have to do the backs and bottoms if it's just you that's going to be looking at it, but I like to make sure things look finished up and pretty, so we're doing all of it. Once that's dried completely, I am going in with a second coat, making sure everything looks nice and fluid, and then letting it dry. You can use your heat gun or a hair dryer to help speed up the drying process. I'm going to move forward with that same sanding block, and I'm going to knock down the edges and distress it back a little. I liked the color of the wheelbarrow before. It was just a little plain and old and outdated and a bit beat up. So we're going to knock that back, bring that color back out, and then we're going to be using this bee napkin. I am pretty sure I got these off of Amazon and that they're linked in my affiliate links, which if you do purchase through those links, I just get a small percentage back from Amazon. So full disclosure there, but yes, I found these on Amazon, but you can find pretty napkins in a lot of places and do amazing things with them. So what you want to do is get some Mod Podge, or you can use watered down glue like Elmer's glue. You can use whatever like top sealant that you have. Like I could use the polyacrylic if I want to, but it's a little watery and runny, so it might be hard to control. But with this napkin, it's really thin, so I'm going to use Mod Podge to have that thicker adhesive to it, so it'd be a little easier for me to control. I'm going to peel this napkin apart. You can pre-cut it to the size you need, or you can just leave it as is, but you want to make sure you take the multi-plies off of it. Some only have one layer, some have three. You have to just be careful. You can just wet your fingertips and peel a corner, and then you're just going to slowly and carefully peel it apart. After that, just kind of work with your placement on where you want it to go, and then you're going to paint the surface down. Since I'm working with a smaller surface here, I'm just going to be doing the whole thing at once. But if it was a larger surface, I would start with one area, work that through, and then come back and do the next section as I get it down. That way you can prevent wrinklings or mess ups. So I'm just going to paint the whole surface, get it lined back up where I want it to go, press it down from the top, middle, and then work my way out to the sides. I have to be careful with this because this one's thin to not rip the napkin as the Mod Podge starts to seep through it. So I just do this really quickly before it gets through, and then once it's in place, I'm going to take that Mod Podge and do a thin, even layer all over the entire top of it. I'm going to use my heat gun to start the heating process and then let it finish air drying. Once it's completely dry, I'm going to take that sanding block and I am going to run it on the edges in a downward motion to clear away any of the excess napkin that we don't want. It's going to leave nice, crisp, clean edges in the same shape of whatever object that you're doing. I'm going to peel that away, and I do have one spot here where I can't get the sanding block in, so I'm just going to use a little X-Acto knife, cut it away, and then I'm going to take that Mod Podge and my brush and hit all of the edges of it to make sure it is extra secure and not going to peel or unravel, and let that dry thoroughly. I'm going to be doing this on both sides of the wheelbarrow. On the second side, I'm just going to change the orientation slightly so they're not the exact same, even though they are the same image. Again, same exact steps. I'm going to let that dry completely and then seal the entire wheelbarrow with some polyacrylic. Make sure that screw is put back in, and this project is complete. I think it turned out adorable. Would love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Last but certainly not least, we are going to be working on a spring door sign, and I'm going to start by sanding it down. I was going to just hand sand this because I am working on it a little later at night, so apologies to my neighbors if for some reason they ever see this, for it being 9:30 when I got out my orbital sander, because I needed to give my arm a rest. So I just went outside, knocked down that top layer of paint, just because if you would run your hand across it, you could kind of feel the beveled edges of where like the little dots and the S and all of those things were painted on. And I wanted it to be a flatter, smoother surface so that you can't see that through when I start to paint over it. So I just wiped it down, cleaned it up really good, and then we're gonna start painting it. Now I want this to be a flower with multicolors, so I'm just gonna pick the colors that I want. I went with a light pink, a dark purple, and some white. And I'm just gonna work on one petal at a time, and I'm just literally gonna put dots of paint down. Don't overdo it. You don't want too much paint, but you also want enough. So I'm just gonna dot around, use a smooth bristled brush, and I'm just gonna start painting in a like rounded motion. I'm following the shape of the petals. So that's the important part here, is I'm gonna follow the shape of those petals and just kind of let that paint do its thing. You don't want to overwork it. You don't want it to be extremely streaky. You want to blend those colors slightly, but you don't want them to get muddy and just turn into one solid color. And I'm just going to do that, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm going to move to the next petal. And then I'm starting to do a couple at a time because I'm getting more comfortable and knowing what I want it to look like. Next, I thought I wanted a second layer of petals, so I did that, and then I hated it. So I went back and did the exact same thing that we just did to fix it. I just got a little more bold with the colors, which I'm really happy that I did because I really like how it turned out on the second round. So I did the same thing. I just put the colors down, used that brush, and just kind of went with the shapes of the petals and did that all the way around, not completely mixing those colors. And from there, I needed to work on kind of the center of the flower and the highlights and the shadowy parts. I don't know, words are so hard today. So I'm gonna use the dark purple. You see a lot of people who do these who use like black and white. I didn't want that harsh of a contrast. I wanted to look, I don't know, a little more natural, cartoonish. I don't know. So I'm gonna use that purple as my dark shadow, and then I'm going to be using some white and light pink as the highlights on it. So I'm going to start just by kind of tracing the sides of the petal towards the middle, because I want the top of my petals to be the highlighted part. So I'm just going to do that on all of the sides of the petal, and then I'm going to randomly do some streaks from the center and within the petal to give it some dimension. And then I'm going to make like little pollen strokes all around, going in the direction that the petal is facing. So it's going to end up in a circle, but you'll see here, following the shape of the petal and just kind of throwing those on randomly. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm going back in with that white and that light pink, and I'm hitting the tips of the petal and also coming down and doing more pollen strokes and just kind of random strokes within it to give that light and darkness and make it really have some contrast, because that's what's going to pop it off of the backing. So I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna come back in with some yellow, some brown, that same like golden yellow and a bright yellow, and I'm going to do the center of the flower. So I'm gonna start with the brown and a stencil brush or a hard bristled brush and get all that texture and just bounce it in a circle, and or however large or whatever shape you want it to be, a circle, a slight oval. And I'm going to make sure that the holes that will hold the hanger are at the top so that I can make sure my orientation is correct. So I'm thinking the light is coming from the sun, which is above. So I want to start with that brown, go to the next color, which would be the golden brown, and I'm going to dab all over it again, but not fully at the bottom, so that brown can still kind of show through. And I'm not going to cover it completely because you want those two colors to intermingle but not mix. You want them to stay two separate colors but also slightly blended. That's the best way I know how to explain it. I'm not sure, but it just gives it that dimension. And after that, we're going to go in with that bright yellow right on top and really work the top of that to where it looks like the sun is shining down. And you're just going to bounce that around and kind of throughout as well, but mostly focusing on the top. After that, I just set it to the side to let it dry, and we're going to work on our little bumblebee. I picked this little wooden bumblebee up from Hobby Lobby when I went there, and it's perfect size and really cute for what I want to do. So I'm just going to paint it up the traditional bumblebee way with the black, the yellow, and the white, and I'm just going to kind of go in. I'm using some tape to kind of tape off and block the edges because I'm going to paint the entire edges of it black so that when you see it from the side, you don't see like unpainted edges. And then I'm gonna do the respective yellow, black, and white. The white for the wings, using that same concept that I did for the first bee, with a little bit of black in there, and kind of stroking through it to kind of give it more dimension, to where it's more of like a translucent feel than just like a solid white. After I'm done blending the colors to where I like them, including in the yellows and all of those, I'm going to set it aside to dry, and we are going to work on the wording. Now you can do whatever cute puns that you want here, but I'm going to do Be Our Guest. And I don't feel like pulling out my Cricut for this, so we're going to use some good old-fashioned carbon paper. So if you don't have a Cricut, that's okay. You can still create these beautiful things, and if you're like me, you're not super confident in your like scrolling or like drawing or writing abilities, then this is what you need to do. So I just went on my computer, I let somebody else create this one. I just went into my Cricut, which you can use without payment. You don't have to have a Cricut or a subscription, to use it. I don't believe you can just use it and then you just won't have access to everything. But I went in there, I clicked on images, I selected one that was already pre-done. It said Be Our Guest, and it had a little bee flying. I took off the bee, just kept the lettering, and used it to print to cut. Printed it sized it, printed it to the computer, and now I'm going to cut away the edges that I don't want and use some carbon paper to transfer that onto my sign. So I'm just going to find the spot that I want it to go, tape it down, and then I'm going to slide that carbon paper with the black side of it, or the darker side, down, and then just use a pencil and trace the outside and inside, well, all the edges of the lettering. And you can kind of lift that up. That's why we tape it in place, so we know it'll fall back down in the same exact spot each time. But kind of make sure, double check that it's actually transferring and doing what it's supposed to. And then from there, you can use paint pens. I'm just going to use a paintbrush, and you just color it and fill it in. And voila, you don't need to have a Cricut to do this. So it's just an easy way, and you can get carbon paper at your local office stores. I found it in like the calculator, the calculator with like the little scrolls and stuff, or you can just ask somebody who works there and they can lead you to it. Or again, I have it linked in my affiliate links, and you can just get it off of Amazon. But it's a great way to be able to do projects without having to have a Cricut or cut vinyl, or if you're like me, feeling a little lazy, you don't have to get everything out. You can just copy it over and then paint it in. Once that has dried, I am going to be adding the bee on, and so you can see I kind of did some black dashes all the way through, kind of like the bee was flying around, and then I'm going to glue the bee on. Now the bee, the back wing, is protruding a bit from the rest of the body, so it will not sit flat on the sign, and I want to make sure this stays nice and secure. So I'm going to be using my STARBOND glue and attaching 2 other pieces of wood to make it a solid flat back. I found one that's the same thickness as that wing from my collection here, broke it down and glued that onto the back. That way I can glue that down as well. So I am using my STARBOND glue. I'm going to glue the back of the bee and the parts that I know is going to touch the sign, spray the sign, and then just adhere it with some pressure for about 10 seconds, and we are good to go. Now I want to just highlight those letters a little bit now that they're dry, and I'm just going to come back in with some white and just kind of paint those edges again, keeping in mind where the light would be hitting and reflecting off of the letters if they were actually like glossy and protruding and in a bright light. So I'm just going to go through, add those highlights all the way through, add some highlights onto the bee, and then we're going to paint the entire back of it black just to clean it up. It has paint spots all over the back, make it look good. Take it outside and seal it with some Rust-Oleum 2X clear. You can use whatever sheen that you want. I'm using matte in this case, and I'm just going to seal it up to make sure it is weatherproof, because I assume someone will be using this on their door. We're going to bring it back inside, use the rope hanger that we had saved from the beginning, tie that back on, and make a cute ribbon. For this ribbon, we're going to keep it nice and simple. I found this super cute bee ribbon at Hobby Lobby when I was there. I spent about $10 for the things that I got, because I got another ribbon that is not pictured in this video, but it is really cute and perfect for the sign. So I'm just going to go through my stash, pick the ribbons that I want, cut them to the length. I want the ones in the back to be a little bit longer than the ones in the front. Cut, you know, the little triangles out and then just lay them in an X formation. Pinch into the center. Use some floral wire, a pipe cleaner, a zip tie, whatever you have, string, and tie the middle down and secure it. And then I'm just going to kind of fiddle with it because I didn't get the perfect center. And then I'm going to make sure it's secure. Use some jute twine to cover the floral wire, and then I'm going to wire it down to the sign. That is all that we did for this sign. I say all like it didn't take a long time, but it did. I love it. I kind of want to keep it. I don't know if my boyfriend's going to let me. I kind of want to keep everything, but let me know in the comments below which one of these projects is your favorite. Are you going to give any of them a try? I would just love to hear feedback from you guys. I would love to give you, have you guys give me a thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed this content. Subscribe if you're here, whether you're brand new or have watched a couple of my videos. Would love to have you join. Again, 98% of the people who are watching my videos have not subscribed, so I'm trying to figure out what I need to do differently. I'm just gonna take you guys in for a closer look, and I'll see you next time.